Look, there's two types of camera gear. There's functional gear, which is a bit boring, but you need it to get the job done and to solve problems. And so, it kind of supports your creativity. And then there's purely creative gear, which is fun, but you don't really need it to get the job done. You use it to make the end result look better or different or more cinematic, whatever. And in this video, I'm gonna show you a little bit of both. All budget gear, of course, and I'm even gonna show you how sometimes you can use functional gear in a creative way. Now, just so you know, all the gear I'm gonna show you today is from Smallrig, and that's because they're paying me to make this video. But I also want you to know this, I've been buying Smallrig gear ever since I started this channel, and maybe even before that, because I like them. They make high quality stuff for a good price. And so yeah, now they asked me to show off my favorite Smallrig gear. So let me show you my selection here. Some interesting stuff. And I'll link everything in the description, of course. Okay, and the first thing I want to show you is the magic arm and all the small things that you can combine with a magic arm. And I really want to emphasize specifically also on those little things, because over the years I've collected a whole bunch to solve problems, right? To mount my camera on something, or to mount something on my camera, or to mount a light on my camera, whatever. And I have a whole bunch of these little things now. Also super clamps. Super clamps are awesome. And you can use all of this in combination with a magic arm to build your own custom rig to get the coolest shots. For example, do you remember this? The shots looked super cool, right? But instead of using a tripod upside down like that, if you attach a camera to your bike or your car so that it's on a fixed position, so that it can't move, the shots look even cooler. Look what I did here. This is the magic arm with super clamp and then a ball head with quick release plate. And then that quick release plate is mounted on top of my camera cage for my Sony a7S III. And then all that mounted on my bike. In camera stabilization on, and you get these super cool shots. The possibilities are endless, and look, I think this looks super professional. No one would ever know that you did this with like a cheap DIY rig. Now, is this dangerous? A little bit for your camera. There's always a chance that you forget to tighten one of the screws, right? Or maybe the camera was a bit closer to the ground than you anticipated when you hit a bump. So, always double check everything. Okay, and then next is the mighty V-mount battery. Now, I've already shown you a few V-mount batteries on my channel and why you should use them. First, for their high capacity. You can film a whole day with one battery, but also the fact that they're compatible across all camera brands, and you can also connect your camera and multiple accessories like a light or a monitor all to the same battery. So super useful for pretty much every filmmaker and content creator. When I first started using V-mount batteries, I was like, wow. And while I have V-mount batteries from different brands, I must say that on top of all the functionalities, Smallrig also does have one of the nicest designs. And this VB99 SE is also one of the most budget-friendly options, by the way. And when I buy stuff myself, budget is always important, so yeah. But here's the thing, while I've shown you why you should use V-mount batteries, I've never showed you how you should use them, how you mount them on your camera, for example. And that's also important, right? And there are different ways to do it. The first way is the simplest way, and super cheap also. Just buy one of these V-mount super clamps, attach it to your tripod, connect it to your camera using a D-tap cable, and you're good to go. But of course, that way you can only use your camera on your tripod. So the best way, the ideal way, of course, is to integrate the V-mount with your camera rig. But that also doesn't have to be complicated or super expensive. You can use a foldable V-mount battery plate to mount a V-mount battery straight onto your camera. Add a cold shoe top handle and a D-tap to USB-C cable, and you're good to go. All the power you need for a whole day of filming. Now look, about that top handle, right? Not too long ago I bought this cold shoe top handle because it allows me to use it without a cage. But I know that some of you aren't very comfortable with using a cold shoe top handle on your camera because some say that it might possibly break your camera. Now, I've never had that happen, but I must admit, adding a V-mount battery does add some weight to your rig. So if you're more comfortable with using a cage, by all means, use a cage, of course. Okay, and then now I want to show you something purely creative. This focusable LED video light. And yeah, so it's not supposed to be used as a key light or something. It's designed to add mood and texture or atmosphere in the background. You can adjust the strength and the color, and you can even adjust the focus and size of the beam. That's pretty cool. But then the important part of this light is this rubber thingy that you pull over the tip of the light, and then you can insert these stencils or gobos, I think it's what they call them. And it creates, well, it creates really corny backgrounds or also super cool realistic sunset sunlight through window scenes, for example. So you can create whatever you want, and it's pretty cool. And you can also use it in your studio, for example, to add some texture in the background. So it's fun, it looks great, if you know how to use it, of course. Okay, and then finally, I also want to talk real quick about tripods. Because the few last times that I showed you how I use my travel tripod, I showed you this crappy thing. This incredibly cheap tripod that I bought on Amazon. I think it was 15 bucks. And I've received some comments about this tripod. Usually something like, why the f are you using that thing? And look, I want to be clear here. I'm not recommending this one over a more durable one. Of course not. I have more than one tripod, you know? More expensive ones also, bigger ones, higher ones, heavier ones. And spending a bit more on a tripod will of course give you more features, more functionalities. This is kinda wonky and not so durable. And my Smallrig here is a bit bigger and heavier, but it still fits in the bottle holder of my backpack. And because it's a bit heavier, it's also more stable. You can even take it apart and use it as a monopod, something you can't do with that cheap tripod I showed you. Or use it like this to get some low angle shots. And then my big old Manfrotto, for example, is super heavy and super stable, but it's impossible to use it as a travel tripod. So, you know, out of these three, of course this one, the Smallrig, is the better choice for a travel tripod. I always prefer using this whenever possible and not the crappy thing. But all that being said, what I wanted to show you by using that crappy tripod is that it is possible. If you don't have the money right now, then use something super cheap and you'll get it done. Using something crappy like that also forces you to be creative, you know? But don't think that I would recommend that over something that's, you know, more durable and more high quality. Of course not. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. That's my favorite Smallrig gear. I hope it motivates you. I hope it inspires you to go out and shoot something. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.